Good evening, E-World. Good afternoon time, good morning time, whatever the case may be in your part of the world. Lottie-dottie, everybody, and all that good stuff. What a terrible day of filming it has been. Needless to say, first off, I started off the day filming the removal of the control and battery from this bike, and ran out of space while filming that, and that video got cut short. So then after putting in the new SD card and starting to film again, some kind of way all that footage got jacked up. So this is a redo of basically as much as I can remember to try and ad-lib my way through repeating what I said the first time. Alright, now the dilemma that we were having here is trying to get a decent battery into this bomber bike, because as you can see, it being the lightweight version, there's a really small frame, and the cavity as to where the battery goes in this bike is also very, very small. So if you had what you wanted to have in a perfect world, you would have a battery made of some really, really high capacity cells that could in turn be a physically small size battery, and therefore not take up a lot of space. Such a battery would be pretty expensive though, because the better quality cells, the higher capacity cells, the more expensive they are. Now you could also go with some pouches, which are the little square packs, and possibly build a nice size battery to fit in this compartment as well, but those too are expensive. And even though it happens most of the time, you don't want to end up spending more on the battery than the entire bike. Now, of course, batteries end up costing way more than the frames and most of the components, but at least when you build a high power bike, by the time you finish putting high quality everything else, such as the motor, such as the suspension, the bars, the seat, the wheels, everything else, they at least are on par with each other. You know, you got a $800-900 motor, you got a $700-800 frame, you got suspension that's another $1,500 worth of suspension. So you don't feel bad putting a $1,500 or $2,000 battery in such a bike. However, in this case, when you get a bike for a really good price, naturally it's not going to come with the greatest battery. And that is the battery that came out of this bike. If you notice, it says KU battery 5 kilowatt. Now 5 kilowatt, they're not saying that that's 5 kilowatt hours or 5 amp hours or anything. That's all it says is 5 kilowatt. I guess meaning that battery could give you 5 kilowatts worth of power, but for who knows how long. Judging from the size of that battery. Now understand, this is a 72 volt battery. And we know a 72 volt is a 20S battery. So that being said, I mean, look how small that battery is. Okay, this is the controller in comparison to the battery. The controller is almost bigger than the battery. Definitely as wide as it is. Yeah. Almost weighs about the same as the battery. This thing is man, it's super lightweight, unlike this Onyx battery over here, which is pretty heavy because it's got some decent cells in it. Alright? So, you know, we're going to just take a rough guess and say that that battery is roughly, just guessing now, 11, 12, 13 amp hour. And I tell you what, that's stretching it. If you look at the width of that battery, man, what are we talking? 4P? Maybe? And I'm not even going to go. I was going to grab some cells and see how many cells I could get across that way, but I don't even know if they're set up that way. I would figure maybe they got 20 cells. Maybe they got 20 cells going this way. I don't know. I'm not going to try to figure out how many cells is in that pack. It's a very small pack, to say the least. Now, that being said, this Onyx pack isn't super duper large. However, it having some high quality cells and giving a rating as most batteries do, we know for a fact this is a 23 amp hour pack, 72 volt, and it's capable of at least 80 amps because this BMS is 80 amps. Alright, so we know what that is. That's an Onyx battery out of the case. Now, what I have in mind is to try to get that Onyx battery in this bike using some magic and some possibly a little bit of know-how, who knows, and a whole lot of luck. But anyway, I have reduced this battery down to almost its smallest size, and that's because I have removed it out of the shrink wrap that it comes with. And what did I do with these other pieces over here? So I want to go over some battery configuration stuff here and how batteries are put together. And I know a lot of you already know that, but for those that don't, we're going to go over that. Now, this is the plastic siding that went around this battery, and this plastic siding serves two purposes. One, obviously, is insulation and protective covering for this battery. As you can see, there's bare metal exposed down there, and this battery could easily short itself out had it not had some type of protective siding on it. So you got to be really careful when you remove all that and make sure you don't short this battery out. But I'm going to be as careful as I can because I know what's going on just a little bit. But anyway, like I said, most of this, the reason why it's plastic is it makes good insulation and keeping this battery safe from touching stuff. At the same time, this plastic siding also helps give it its smooth contour. When you put this plastic around this battery and use that cap-on tape to hold it in place, it gives it a smooth, straight edge. So when you put your heat shrink on it, like I said, it gives it a smooth contour on the sides. If I would just put heat shrink on this battery, for one, that wouldn't be too protective, just the heat shrink. And for two, when you shrink it, you see all these ripples from the, the shape of the battery. So That plastic will give it its nice smooth edges and keep most stuff from puncturing the sides of this battery. Alright, anyway, I removed all that. I'm trying to get this battery down to its smallest size right now, and this is about as small as this battery can go. The only other thing we can do, because I'm trying to get that battery to possibly go in this bike this way, like that. Okay, and we're off by just a little bit. So another thing I can do is, I'm not saying bypass the BMS, I'm saying move this BMS. If you notice the width of the battery this way, we have plenty of room going from width-wise this way. So I could, this BMS is just stuck down there with some double-sided tape, and I'll have to move the BMS wires and everything so I can move this BMS physically. But I want to move the BMS from this top position to the side, because as I said, we have plenty of room this way. We need as much room as we can get this way. So by doing that, as you can see, that would give me about another ½ inch, or maybe even 3/4 of an inch, by just moving that to the side. And that may be, you hear me out, no guarantees, that may be just enough that I can insert this battery on an angle like that and take the other side panel off and just luckily fit that battery in here. I'm not sure yet. I gotta remove that BMS, and then I also have to insulate the top and bottom of this battery again with some, at least one layer of plastic, so it won't touch anything in that frame. It still will be smaller as form factor goes, because they had a whole bunch of this foam cushioning around top and bottom, which made it about an inch wider and taller than it needed to be. So if we remove all this foam and put the plastic flat on there, we just may be able to get it in there. And I'm going to do all the insulation and stuff I can, so relax. Don't need to hear any, oh, it's dangerous, it's can touch and short out stuff. We're going to make sure none of that happens. Just want to see if I can physically fit it in there first. And if not, the next step will be reconfiguring this battery. So let's take a look at this battery. Like I said, this is a 72 volt 23 amp hour. 72 volt, obviously it's a 20S battery. That means 20 cells in series, and that's what we have going in this direction, 20 cells. And if we were trying to see how many cells are in parallel, let's take a look at how everything is connected underneath it here. And just notice, I'm not going to speak much on it, but I just want you to observe there's only one layer of nickel strip connecting all of these cells in parallel. Now, you know, in parallel means that cells are connected together as far as their positives all together and their negatives all together. So it will be easy to figure out by looking at this which cells are in parallel. And as you can see, starting right here, if we were to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 cells are all connected on this one nickel strip. And that remains to be the same all throughout this battery. If I move over to here, here's another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Another 9 cells in parallel. And no, these cells on the other side of this nickel strip aren't in parallel. This nickel strip coming this way is putting them in series, because you may not be able to see, but this is the positive side of this row of cells. This is the negative side of this row of cells. This is a positive side. This is another negative side, and this is another positive side. Okay, so that means they're in series going in this direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5 in series going that way, 9 in parallel going that way. On this side of the battery, we have the same thing. Another 9 in parallel that way, 5 in series that way. So what that makes this part of the battery is one 10S 9P pack. Okay, now those who know their math, a 10S battery is a 36 volt battery. Okay, 36 volts. Now I know you're saying, I thought you said that was a 72 volt battery. Yes, it is a 72 volt battery, which is why this one level here is 36 volts, because it is in series with another level of the same size pack as the bottom, another 36 volt pack. This is another 36 volt pack up here, another 10S 9P pack, and this pack is in series with this pack, and it's done so by, if I were to peel back this tape here, you'd see a thick nickel strip going across this way. And what that's doing is, on each end of these batteries there is a little tab that sticks off the end. There's a little tab, and when those little tabs are connected to this nickel strip right here, and the tabs from this battery are connected to this nickel strip, that is putting this pack in series with this pack. So you got two 36 volt packs in series. That gives you your 72 volts. Alright, y'all with me? One 36 volt pack here, one 36 volt pack here. And on the bottom, we've got, basically, if we were to split this battery up, this would be 18 volts on this side, 18 volts on this side. And this 18 volts is in series with this 18 volts. You're getting 36. This is this whole pack down here. Once again, I said a couple times, this whole pack down here is 36 volts. Okay? So, once you know all of that, then it is nothing for you to reconfigure these two packs in another form, another shape, so you could possibly fit them differently. We got four 18 volt packs all in series. Two of them making one 36 volt battery, another two of them making another 36 volt battery, and those two 36s in parallel. So I could split this battery into 4 parts, and then I would have 4 18 volt packs, the same thing, but they don't have to be in this configuration. I could separate them, and I could use either some nickel strips to reconnect them, or I could get some nice 8 gauge wire or some 4 gauge wire and connect them back in series, but in a totally different configuration. So there's no doubt in my mind, if I divide them up into 4 18 volt packs, I could probably get them in there, in a different direction. One 18 volt pack here, another 18 volt pack there, another 18 volt pack there, another 18 volt pack there. So we can get it in there. But we may have to reconfigure the shape of this pack. It won't be a big rectangle where it's facing that way. They will be turned sideways facing the opposite direction. And we can get it in there. Yeah, that's a little bit of work to do, but hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. Now, if you know what you're doing and you can understand how these packs are in parallel and in series, it is nothing for you to separate those 418 packs from these 2 blocks. All you would have to do is cut these in half, cut them right down the middle there, and when you peel the tape off of here and cut this nickel strip in half or unsolder the tabs from it, that's going to separate these 2. Now, the way this battery will come apart is if I take off the tape that goes around this battery, all the way around the center, this seam right here, where they're in series with each other, this metal strip right here, if I take the tape off the sides, it will open up like this. It's only connected on this one side. This one side has this top in series with the bottom, and it's a thick nickel strip, but that nickel strip can bend, and they have it folded, whereas though it folds up on top of each other like that. But I'll be able to, when I remove that tape from the other sides, it will open like that. So it will then be a very wide pack, very short pack, one cell height tall, and 10 cells wide at that point, which still won't fit in that bike in that configuration. But like I said, if I break it down into 4 18-volt packs, it's no doubt in my mind I can fit it in there. Is that more than I want to do? Yes, it is. But as I said, man, there's times and issues where you got to do what you got to do. And I'm just the man that's able to do what needs to be done, in order to make things work. Now, would there be a lot of scaredy cats that wouldn't do such a thing? Yes, they would be. And if you're that person, please, I want you to remain being a scaredy cat. It is a good thing that you're a scaredy cat, because this is nothing to play with. You have to know what you're doing. All right. Do I advise anybody just that has no basic knowledge of this stuff just to watch my video and try to duplicate what I'm doing? No, I do not. And that's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing this to teach you and show you how this battery was constructed and put together, and what I'm going to do to make this work, so you can understand how I got that battery in this bike. But I'm by no means telling anybody that, yeah, break your battery apart and, rebuild it. Now, are there plenty of people that's capable of doing such? Yes. In fact, I think all of you should be capable of doing such. But do I recommend everyone do that? Hell to the no. Because let's just face it, there's some people that don't know what to do with a screwdriver. At the same time, that may not be their area of expertise. They may not know how to work with their hands or screwdrivers, but they may be gifted with the gift of gab, or they be knowledgeable in other fields. This just happens to be my field, which I am knowledgeable in, which is why I'm able to do this. So again, I don't need people in my comment section telling me, no, I don't think you should do that, that's not safe, yada yada yada. Yes, I know all this stuff, but trust me, I know what I'm doing, which is why it's here and why I'm trying to explain this to you. All right. That's it, man. Like I say, man, I made a video earlier of this whole thing. It was a lot longer going over these same points. To have to come back out here and do this again, oh my goodness, you have no idea. But anyway, that's what it is. We do what we gotta do in order to make things understandable for everyone. I want everybody to understand what's happening, and possibly if one person out there today learned something from me explaining this, then I've done my job. I mean, I don't care if, you know, people say that they didn't get anything out of that. Hopefully somebody got something out of that. You know, if one person learned something, that's great. All right, anyway, that's pretty much it. Let me just show you, this is the Kelly controller that we're going to put in this bike. And interestingly enough, this is, if some of you don't know, Kelly obviously has two different levels of the same controller. Now, this is their smallest controller. Don't ask me what the model number is offhand because I do not know. But this is their 300 amp controller. Supposedly, and I think that's peak amps, obviously. I think it's only like 175 RMS or continuous amps. At the same time, I saw where Kelly a lot of times rate their controllers in phase amps and not DC amps. So they will put on their spec sheet 300 amp controller, and yes, they can technically say it's a 300 amp controller, but a lot of times they're giving their phase amp rating, where Sabaton gives their DC amp rating, and that's two different ratings. You need to understand that as well, because DC amps is the amount of current or amps that you are pulling from your battery. Okay, that's how much current is being drawn from your battery system. The phase amps these are the phase wires that go to your motor. So the phase amps is how many amps flow through the phase wires going to your motor, and those amps are often always a lot larger than the DC amps. So like on a Sabaton 72150, it's 150 DC amps, but it's rated for 350 phase amps. Okay, so do know there is a difference when you're looking at these current ratings on the controllers. All right, now back to why I was saying there's two different models for whatever model controller this is. I don't remember which one it is, but notice, I'm sure a lot of you have this same size controller, but you're looking and notice this one has two phase wires hooked together, two yellow phase wires both tied together, two green phase wires tied together, two blue phase wires tied together. Then they also have the battery power wires, two of those together in parallel, and they have two positives in parallel, two negatives in parallel. And the reason why they're doing that is for extra current draw. You know, so this controller can handle a large amount of current. Supposedly they're doubling up on the gauge of these wires. I think these are 8 gauge, so two 8 gauge in parallel. If you know about wires, as the wire size gets smaller in number, the bigger the wire is. So if you got two 8 gauges in parallel, that makes a 4 gauge. The number is smaller, but the thickness is bigger. All right, so yeah, this is the modified version of whatever controller this is. And I'm sure the next size controller, they've done the same thing. So Kelly has stepped their game up on their controllers and trying to give their you know, trying to make sure that the motors and the batteries get the right amount of current they should get by having the proper gauge wires on there. Alright, now just because your controller may only have one of these wires, does that mean your controller is not going to be able to do what it needs to do? No, it's fine. This is just giving a little bit of extra. Alright, now I really don't know a whole lot about Kelly controllers. This is pretty much the first time that I'm installing one or had to use one. You know, up to this point I've used other controllers, mainly Savitons. This is my first time installing a Kelly, but to me a controller is a controller. They're different brands, different manufacturers, but they all the same. They all have the same wiring. They all have the same everything. They got hall sensor wires. They got low brake, high brake. Everything the same as other controllers. Nothing is different. All controllers are pretty much the same as far as that goes. One thing I do know about these Kellys, they don't like a lot of heat. So if you notice, most of the Onyx guys that ride seriously, they have removed their controllers from the inside and mounted them on the outside. Those controllers do not like heat, and if they're inside of the bike, they overheat, and when they overheat, they throttle back. Throttle back meaning they decrease the amount of power output, so you can be riding, and if all of a sudden you're losing power and everything cuts back, that's because that controller is protecting itself, limiting the current, and that's what they do. So you can always move it to the outside, and it'll like it a lot better on the outside. Or you can put a fan on the inside to help keep it cool. But these things get hot in the summertime, and as you know, it's been hella hot. So try to keep that stuff as cool as possible. Alright y'all, that's the end of this one. Take it easy, take care, deuces. This is a Crooked Finger production. We out once again. Peace.